Hello, dear listeners. Welcome to the ECM podcast. I'm Caroline Fontagneux, and I'm very happy to host this series that will take you behind the scenes of new music on ECM Records. In this new episode, I'm talking with Wolfgang Muthspiel about his new trio album recorded with Scott Colley and Brian Blade, Tokyo, produced by Manfred Eicher. We talked about telepathy, how to write a song, music and life education, and so much more. We are here to celebrate the release of Tokyo. It's your third recording with Brian Blade and Scott Colley. First of all, you were in Tokyo. You recorded there in Tokyo. Was it in the middle of the tour or you went to Tokyo to record there?
We actually went there to play a series of gigs, and I had written a whole program and new program for this trio. And after playing this for 6 sets, we wanted to document this and went to the studio.
So that was not planned?
It was planned, but
it was just serendipitous.
It was kind of a good opportunity to catch the flow of what had developed, and rather than choose another date and have a second go at everything and another rehearsal and so on. We just wanted to keep going. So after playing this in the club many nights, there's a certain flow with the music, a certain natural way to play it, and I just wanted to catch that and not.
Yeah.
So we only had short time in the studio. I think 2 days total. So
it's always nice to have the music in. I was going to say in mouth, but it's just like in your hands or in your head or in your heart or whatever, wherever it is. It's always nice to get into the studio right out of a series of gigs, right?
I agree. Sometimes it's also a certain challenge to keep that same sort of innocence that you have on stage. Keep that in the studio because you're under the microscope in a way. But with these musicians, they made it pretty easy for us to go to the heart of the song with little plan or expectation, or just sometimes it's enough to just play the song.
Yeah.
And then whatever develops around it is welcome. This is not so much music that depends on the solo that carries everything. It's music that really lives from the songs and the way we talk to each other over the songs.
You're saying songs. You're not saying tunes. You're not saying it's songs. It tells a story. It doesn't have lyrics. Maybe in your head it does, but it sounds like songs for real. Even if it's instrumental, there's something with an arch, with something where we hear a story, even if there's no words.
Yes, absolutely. I think of them as songs. They could be sung. I'm trying to write melodies that I want to play and hear, and especially I want to write melodies for Scott.
Yeah.
A lot of times Scott plays the melodies, and I want to give him the best melody in the best range of the bass, and that's kind of my goal when I'm
and
writing.
They work. Listen, I have Flight in my head for the last 2 days. I just keep
cool.
having it in my head.
That was a beautiful moment when I came up with this song. Generally, the finding of the tunes is sort of my favorite part of music making.
How does that work? Do you come up with the melody first, with the chords first? Do you hear Scott and Brian? Do you write this music for the trio? What's the process of creation?
Well, my process is pretty simple. I have this ritual of playing without expectations in the morning, if possible. And
like automatic writing, automatic
yes,
yeah.
Like automatic writing, the artist's way thing, but in music. So just play whatever comes out without judgment, and it can be anything. It doesn't have to be good, but it kind of tells you where maybe today's music is, or where's your body today and stuff. And so usually cells come that might be concentrated seeds of a song, and I usually record those cells. So my iPhone is full of these cells, and they are sort of like instant songs, you just add water and they become a song.
Magic.
Yeah, pretty much. And the thing is, these cells, you record them when you feel something specific and strong with those little parts of music. Sometimes it's only one bar
notes,
or. But the feeling that you have when you found it is always the same. Like when you listen to it 7 days later or a year later, that feeling is always the same, the specific feeling of that thing. So it always gets you to that point where you might expand it into a song. And then, of course, when you expand it, you have to sort of make sure you don't rush it, because, is the next part making you as happy as the initial part. So yeah, sometimes it can take a while, but yeah, that's how I write pretty much. And then I know, okay, I'm going to play there and there. I want to write new music, and then I go to all my cells and think, okay, this could work for this band, this could work for this.
You're writing those songs, and then when it comes to a moment where you're gonna tour with this band or record with this one, because you're touring with several bands and you're working with several formats of bands, so this is when it turns to life. Like this is where
exactly. Then I can visit my cells, and then I can choose. Okay, this one I wanna expand into a song for this and this person, and for me it just works like that. My writing has to be like playing or kind of constant, so that it's kind of normal to write a song and not a big thing, and not nearly everything I write will be used. I also write many things that I never use,
and it's fine,
and I just like the process. And to find the song, that's why I say finding, it's more like finding than constructing. Usually it shows what it is, it shows you this part of music that you found. It shows you what it could be. You can't force it into being something else than it is. So you just have to sort of expand it. That it's already there. You just have to find it. In the case of this song Flight, there was actually the chord progression first. Sometimes you are also lucky, and certain symmetries work out over a long period and stuff. You kind of trying things. You never know before. You never know anything. And then that was sort of a present, this chord progression. And I knew when I wrote that, okay, this deserves a really good melody, and this melody has to be played by the bass first, and so.
Yeah, and it worked. It worked so well. Can you talk to me about the guitars, the instruments themselves? Like, what's your story with the guitars that you recorded this album with? Where did you get them? Tell me about your guitars.
Yeah, I have two main guitars. One is a classical guitar. One is a jazz guitar, and the classical guitar is built by Jim Redgate, who's from Australia, a luthier that I met many years ago on tour, because a colleague of mine, Australian classical guitarist Slava Grigorian, plays his instruments, and he introduced me. And so this Jim is a master of building classical guitars, also somebody who loves to experiment and builds very many different kinds of things. And he built me one, and I loved it, and then he built me another one, and we have this ongoing relationship. Also he tells me if I have a problem with the guitar, what to do with it, and so on. And in the other case, it's also similarly close relationship. It's with an Italian builder. His name is Moffa, Nico Moffa, and he built my electric guitar. And the story with that is spectacular, because he basically wrote to me saying that he's building me a guitar. And I didn't know who he was. And I was, I was surprised.
Sure.
I had no idea what, okay, why not, And then I kind of found out that, he has a long waiting list, and he's obviously a very good luthier that many people want to play his instruments. Went there to Pescara, Italy. Then he gave me this guitar, to play. And I fell in love with it right away. And he said, I built this while I was listening to your music.
Wow.
So he built it for me, just to give it to me. And that's much, much stronger bond than any kind of endorsement or contract.
Oh my God, yeah, no,
he
it's
built
beautiful.
me this, and it's like he thought I could use this sound after, he listened to my music. So I'm forever grateful, and we also have this, builds me different things, and we talk about it and stuff.
Do you have a million guitars, and it's hard for you to pick the one you want to take on tour or to the studio, or
actually no? I have a lot of guitars, but those are the two I go on the road with, and I'm not really super into gear.
Yeah.
and often I don't know the details. Like
you don't have a million
when
pedals
other guitarists ask me like, what's the measurement of the blah blah blah, I don't even know the words. So
Okay.
I don't know, check it out.
Fine.
It's like with my car, I have no idea. I like it, but don't ask me anything.
As long as it plays, as long as it drives.
Exactly.
On the two previous trio album, you closed on Angular Blues with a standard, and on Dance of the Elders with a Johnny Mitchell song. But on this one, you're opening with a Keith Jarrett track, and you're closing with a Paul Motion track.
Well, I have a long relationship with Paul Motion, who I was very fortunate to play with in a few different bands. In his band, the Electric Beaver Band, but also in my trio when I was rather young and cocky enough to ask him whether he want to play with me.
Yeah, you recorded with him in '94.
Yes, and I still can't believe it. But those many hours with him, next to his cymbals, were super lessons for me. And I also have a big love for his modernistic approach to songwriting. He has the worlds of standards that I shared with him, but then he has this other original music, which is basically always some very peculiar head that is inviting the whole band to play free afterwards. Most of the times these heads are also not in a strict pulse, but rubato. But when he plays rubato, it's several pulses at once or something like that. And so he's always with me in a way, and I played this song Abacus on many gigs with many bands, so I just wanted to do that. And the other song, the Keith Jarrett song, was introduced to me by Guillermo Klein, the Argentinian composer, who brought it to a band in a program that I'm running in Basel. It's called Focus Year, and he's one of the coaches, and he brought this song and I liked it. And it's also just a head with basically that invites free playing afterwards. And I play this song because, first of all, it's a tribute to Keith, who I adore, but also the free playing is sort of time without changes, or changes that you make up on the spot. And that's something I love with Scott. That's a game we love to play, time, and then we make up the changes. It's not abstract. It is kind of abstract, but you always try to find each other, and then you make up a song in a way. Sometimes it's like a blues, but it can also be other forms. And that's something I love with him. And I think Keith played his version with Charlie Hayden.
Yeah.
So that's also
song live between the exit signs, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Charlie Hayden was also a master of this, making up changes on the spot. And of course Keith, hearing everything. And so the topic for me on this song was finding changes on the spot, because sometimes people think free playing is like, okay, everything has to be outside or something, or super expressive, rather than like if it was a completely different world than a song. But it's not. It can also be a song that you just didn't know before or something. So I love that side of free music. The fact that we open with a Keith Jarrett song and we end with a Paul Motion song is the decision of Manfred.
For the sequencing?
I love the decision. I would have not come up with this at all. But he has a very, very special feel for the sequence and I love the fact that it's now, these two bookends of musicians that have influenced me and that are also on ECM. So, it was not premeditated on my part.
But that's such an amazing, one of the million amazing talents of Manfred Eicher. It's just his ability to draw the arch of an album from A to Z with so much meaning and so much intention.
That is really true.
Yeah.
That is really true. And every sequence, every order makes a completely different record.
Exactly.
I've often tried, so many different sequences at home, and everyone tells another story, and certain things, after you've listened to them, they only allow this or that. It's like a theater play. Act 2, Act 3. What has to happen now?
Story,
when are we breathing? When are we dreaming, when are we sleeping, when are we active, you know.
And the second we're just relaxing a little bit after something very intense, you just like grab us back and you just let us, it's the magic of ECM. Let's talk about ECM for a second, because throughout all your career, it's like you were destined to play with ECM. Do you remember the first time you heard an ECM album?
Oh, yeah.
But then we say that you played with Paul Motion, but you also played with Mark Johnson and Ralph Towner and Gary Burton, and it's like everything was leading you to finally sign on ECM.
Well, I surely hoped to be on ECM since I was 15 or something, because I mean, I didn't even think of the possibility then, but my whole introduction to jazz music was really through ECM. My early listening was Ralph Towner and Pat Metheny and Keith Jarrett and you know, Dave Holland and Kenny Wheeler and Codona and all this amazing stuff that formed my whole taste also. And you know, much later I went back in the history of jazz to discover the older jazz musicians, where this all comes from. And so yeah, for me it was an amazing window into jazz, ECM. And also because ECM has a real appreciation for classical music and an understanding of classical music, not in a museum kind of way, but if you listen to these brilliant releases on the new series, I mean, there's so much incredible classical music there.
Do you listen to Arvo Pärt?
Oh yes, Arvo Pärt was huge for me. Yeah, it still is. So I thought that my aesthetic really belongs also there, because my two poles are also the improvisational world and the classical world. So yeah, I feel aesthetically very home there. But it took a long time.
You wrote to Manfred one day, or what happened?
No, actually I was in the trio where Ralph Towner was playing, the three guitars.
Oh yeah.
And Ralph got us to record for ECM, and that's when I met Manfred, and that's when he heard me, and then our thing started.
Yeah, that was in 2014 or something.
Yes.
That was like 10-ish years ago, yeah.
And I remember many, many years before, Mark Johnson once took me to the office in Munich and kind of tried to introduce me, but it didn't work.
It was not the right moment.
No, it was not the right moment.
We're sitting on a bench in New York. You have a relationship with this city. You lived here.
I did, yeah.
In the 90s?
Yes.
For how long?
I lived here for 8 years, and before that I lived in Boston for 7 years. And most of the pool of musicians that I play with, most of them I met here, including Brian and Scott and many others. So yeah, those 15 years were super important for me.
When you look back, how do you feel about those years, and do you feel like New York has changed a lot, and what's your take on New York?
Well, I just remember the time in New York as, you know, a time to meet so many musicians from all different ages that are dedicating their life to this music. And not only a few, but a lot of them, and many, many great sounding, interesting artists. And, you know, the cliche of that you go into a bar and somewhere in the corner, a trio plays, you've never heard any of their names, but they are already, you know, they would already be the best band in, you know, Austria or something. No, I don't want to diss Austria, no. But, you know, I want to praise New York for that, you know, for the craft, for the level of dedication to the craft. And so for me, that was very inspiring, and, you know, years of, you know, trying to get something going here, also with this idealism that you need here, you know, trying to fill a small club and, you know, doing whatever's possible to, you know, get steady gigs. And, you know, the other side was that basically everybody would play with you here. You could ask anybody and they would come and play with you. They wouldn't really ask for money. I mean, they would get some money, but
it was
the community of musicians here is you know, is into music.
Do you feel like it's still like that?
I don't know New York anymore.
If someone came up to you tomorrow at the end of your gig in New York and be like, hey, you're in town, would you do a session with me tomorrow? Would you say yes?
Probably not, but I don't know who would ask me. But you know, I know musicians who have gone through my program in Basel, Focus here, and who are here now and doing amazing things. And I hear from them they're playing with this person, and here and there, and it seems to be thriving. The scene. So I think it's still great. I'm sure it has changed a lot, and everything
so
changed from Manhattan to, Brooklyn and other places. But yeah, it's still an inspiring place, and an amazing amount of great artists live here and work here. And so my decision to come here when I was 22, basically to Boston to study and then meet my great teacher, Mick Goodrick, and blah, 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 was very important. And it was also the less convenient choice, of course, if you're in a small city and you're, one of the better musicians, you can easily stay there. But I always recommend to anybody who's serious to check out bigger scenes, in order to really hear other artists, what's out there, and also to get this sense of community, the big community of jazz musicians.
That's so true. Is it the kind of advice you give to your students when you teach in Basel? Like recommend them to just stay open with the community? Or is it part of being a good teacher to give advice larger than just like technical things?
Oh, definitely. Because the technical things are just, you can learn them, from many people.
Yeah.
So the courage to throw yourself in something where you're not sure how it's going to go, that's important. It's a little bit like jazz music itself. You start a tune, you don't know how it's going to end. That's how music should be also. But at the same time, I also think that it's important that a young artist thinks about his own language and not only tries to excel in all different sorts of music, because that doesn't really lead anywhere. So find out what you like, what you love, and pursue that, and then find a surrounding for that. Because including me, many, many jazz musicians by now are sort of academically trained, and that usually comes with a certain encyclopedic approach of trying to be good at many different things. And I think that's also a danger in our education.
Is it a generational thing? Do you feel like it's more like that with younger generation, or it's always been like that?
No, it's definitely becoming more, because in earlier times the main education was with a band, with a band leader. Still exists, if you're lucky enough to be hired by somebody great, you will learn so much more than in university. But I'm talking about this also because I'm sort of reaching the end of my whole teaching thing.
You feel like you're done with this?
Yeah, kind of done. And I also question my own advice. I also question my answers. I don't really believe them.
Well, that one makes a good teacher, because you're not attached to your knowledge thinking that is the truth. You're just still questioning it, which makes you open and a good teacher. I'm sure that's what makes the difference between a good instructor or not. It's just being able to question yourself, being like, is it still relevant today? Is it still relevant to this person that I'm teaching?
Exactly. And also, there's always an idea that you can have to help somebody. You can do this and that and that and that. But that's never true. That's always a convenient attempt to find an answer. At the same time, the process that I'm with the student can be very meaningful. And I'm not critical of teaching itself, because I had incredible teachers. But I just think that with all the amount of information that's out there and easily accessible for any student, maybe the focus on what you actually want to hear, what's your private music, gets lost sometimes or never appears even. The student finishes and never found that. He can do a lot of things well, but so what? Yeah. So I'm then how to find that, but we also find it without the excuse of not working on anything that is hard, because you have those types too. Yeah. They just have like this one song that they just like to play.
It's just about finding the right balance between brain and heart, I guess, or brain and stomach.
Be stubborn as an artist, but at the same time open,
Yeah. How do you like to listen to music, and how would you like this music to be heard? Do you have a preference in the way you want this album Tokyo to be listened to? Is it in the rain in a car? Is it on a run in the park with the headphones? Is it? Oh,
that's such a nice question. I've never got that question.
Is it in a nice chair with a good glass of wine and a good sound system? Is there a perfect setting for this music to be heard?
Okay, well, I don't know. For myself, I feel that I've heard it a lot and done it, and in a way releasing it now, like letting it go. What I can see is maybe a sort of a movie scene with a beautiful old car, and it rains and the windshields are going and there's a couple sitting there in silence.
See?
And the song Flight is playing. Can we make that happen, please?
Okay. You heard it.
Thank you so much. It's been fun to talk to you. Thank you.
Wolfgang Muthspiel about his new ECM album, Tokyo. Thank you for joining, choosing, and listening to our ECM podcast. I'm Caroline Fontagneux, and I look forward to sharing more music with you in the next episode.